Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut. Thanks for coming back for yet another week. So I want you guys to know I worked really hard on this video to try to get to the point and get in the main points and get in the details that you need to get the results that you're looking for. But as I often do, I've also got written instructions or written details or answers to questions in a PDF version, a free guide for you. If you click the link in the description below and sign up for my free email, we'll send you out that guide that goes right along with this video that'll help you just in case you like to absorb a little bit better through reading and writing rather than just watching the video. Both complement each other. Just wanted you to know that that's another free resource available to you to back up the concepts taught in this video.
So this week's going to be a little bit different. I am here in the podcast studio. Well, it's my garage. I've been kind of remodeling the podcast studio and not quite done with it, not really happy with where it's at. And this garage is not conducive to these types of recordings, but I do like to be out here anyway because I like to be amongst my stuff, my equipment, my product, my thrower down. I like to be around all of that stuff because it just kind of puts me in the mood because we're going to talk about early spring lawn chores or early spring, items to check off your box. And it's going to be a little bit different for every single grass type this year. I'm going to really break it down for you, not just warm season and cool season, but I'm actually going to break the grass types down a little bit further. But this video here is going to be universal. So this is going to be universal truths for any of you, no matter what your grass type is. There are a lot of things that line up that we can do the same. It doesn't really matter the grass type. So we're going to go over that now. And the main thing we're going to talk about are spring pre-emergents. And then from there, and I'll publish them about the same time or probably the very same time as this video, I will have separate videos which will be your first spring steps for every single grass type. And I'm going to break it down a little bit differently. Now, Kentucky bluegrass, perennial, rye, and turf type tall fescue, you guys are going to get lumped together as far as your second video because you guys all can run very similar. I will call out a few differences between them, but not too many. So you guys will have your own video. And then Zoysia and Bermuda, you're going to have your own video of early spring steps. And then Centipede and St. Augustine grass, you're going to have your own video about early spring lawn care steps. And there will also be a separate video for Bahia grass because you're unique and mostly found in coastal areas here in Florida, but there's a lot of you guys in the audience. So I'll also make an early spring steps video for you.
Now, don't forget, there's a complete pre-emergent guide that goes along with all this because I know we're getting super detailed. And again, I keep stressing that. That's why I provide written instructions to help answer all of your questions. And all these years, I've gotten tons and tons of questions and I answer most of those in that guide. Also, when you get the guide, you'll also sign up for our weekly email because I send out real-time tips every single Tuesday talking about what's going on in the lawns, very similar to this video, break things down and really help you out so that you can have success in your lawn this season.
Okay, so the very first thing that you're going to do in your lawn this season, no matter where you live, far south or further north, is put down a pre-emergent herbicide. Now, there's two types of herbicides that you'll hear about. There's pre-emergents and there's post-emergents. So pre-emergent herbicides or pre-emergent weed control or pre-emergent weed killers are just like they sound. You get them down into the lawn before weed seeds germinate and grow. This in contrast to post-emergent herbicides or post-emergent weed controls or post-emergent weed killers, which go after weeds that are already up and target them and kill them. So because we're in winter right now and approaching early spring, we are actually getting close to or approaching or coming up on the window for pre-emergent herbicides. And when it comes to which one do I use, because that's inevitably the next question you're going to ask, we want to look at active ingredients. And there are three active ingredients that we typically talk about, those being prodiamine, which you also will hear a brand name sometimes Barricade. And then there's dithiopyr, which you'll also hear as a brand name sometimes called Dimension. And then there is pendimethalin, which you'll also sometimes hear in the brand name Scott's, because Scott's, when they have their 4-step program, one of their steps includes pre-emergent. They call it HALTS, and HALTS is active ingredient pendimethalin. So those are the three that you're going to see. In most cases, you're going to find that Scott's in all of the big box stores, and that's fine. But the challenge you have there is it's going to be riding along with fertilizers, and depending on your grass type, sometimes you don't want fertilizer that early in the year, and other times you don't want that type of fertilizer because you're wanting to flex and use something different. So because of that, pendimethalin is for those of you that are absolute beginners. If you're just finding this video and you don't know anything about lawn care and you're not sure, I'm going to tell you right now, go to Home Depot, go to Ace, go to Lowe's, True Value, whatever you like, get the Scott's with Halts and put that down first thing. That's for super beginners that are just starting. Get that down, throw her down, have a good time, and know that you made a good application of pre-emergent herbicide. But the majority of you are a little bit more advanced that have been in this audience, and you like to flex and do different things. And so because of that, you want to apply your pre-emergent when it doesn't contain any nitrogen. And that's why we make available dithiopyr and prodiamine, which are the same active ingredients that the pros are using out on the road right now. Now, between that prodiamine and dithiopyr, if you want to know which one I recommend for springtime, it's prodiamine. And that's because I just know that from experience experience, it's going to stick in the soil a little bit better. For 15 years, I worked for True Green Chem Lawn up in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, all through the Midwest there, and prodiamine was what we used every spring because it did hold in the soil when you get those heavy spring rains a little bit better than dithiopyr did. The one drawback to prodiamine is that it does have some yearly maximums. You can't put as much pounds on the ground, so if you have a bad year, like I'm suspecting we might have, you have dithiopyr then, which has a looser label restriction on it and is gonna work very close to the same.
Now, one thing to keep in mind here, when I talk about pre-emergent herbicides, they don't stop everything, and in fact, there's really one main thing that they go after, and that is crabgrass. That's the primary reason that we apply pre-emergence in the spring for all grass types, is to stop the invasion of crabgrass. One quick thing I've learned from experience that I think will help some of you guys is that a lot of you use the term crabgrass to represent anything that invades your lawn that's not your good turf grass. You just call it crabgrass. Especially people that move from up north to down south and they get St. Augustine grass, they really think that's crabgrass. But in general, it's become a term. But there is an actual thing, an actual plant, an actual Poaceae that is crabgrass. And that's what we're talking about here today, is stopping that. And the reason I point that out is because as you get into the season, if you get a problem grass in your lawn, don't just assume, well, that's crabgrass and what I did failed. No, it's probably a different kind of grass, and you may have to attack that a little bit differently.
Okay, so far we know then that no matter what grass type we have, we're gonna apply pre-emergent as our first application of the year, and the active ingredient we're gonna look for is prodiamine. The next thing you're gonna ask then is, okay, Alan, when do I apply that? Because it's gonna be different for somebody living in northern Illinois as opposed to somebody living in South Georgia, so we kinda need to understand how that works. And this is where the framework comes in, that it works for everyone. I'm gonna put an infographic up here on the screen, and this is something I created last year. I've been really honing this strategy in for the last several years now, teaching a yearly plan based on soil temperatures. And you can kind of see across the internet now, everybody uses this strategy. It's really awesome to see because it keeps us all in lockstep and it keeps everybody speaking the same language. And we call these temperature milestones. And the first temperature milestone you want to look for is 55 degrees, and that is a soil temperature milestone. 55 is the opening of the window for crabgrass seeds to begin germinating. So what you want to do is you want to apply prodiamine leading up to the time when your soil is approaching 55 degrees. So, you know, when you see it turn 49, 50, 51, that's about the time when you want to get that pre-emergent down as your first application, leading up to that first milestone of 55 degrees. Now you might ask, how do I know what my soil temp is? Well, you could actually get a physical soil thermometer. I'll put a link in the description below where you can pick one up there. And you can measure soil temperatures in your lawn, and that is real time. Just keep in mind that soil temperatures vary during the day. They're gonna be a lot different at 3 a.m. than they are at high noon, as well as areas of your lawn that are shaded will remain cooler longer than areas that are in full sun, and then areas that get morning sun, afternoon sun. You get the idea. But taking real-time temperatures in your lawn is definitely a way to dial that in. And you can also use the soil thermometer for your steaks on the grill. Just make sure you clean the shaft before you take it out of the ground and stick it in the meat. But of course, there's a technology answer here too, and that's a website that I introduced you guys to a couple years ago called the Greencast tool. I'll link that in the description below. You just search Greencast online soil temperatures, and what you can do there is you can plug in your actual zip code, and it'll give you the 24-hour average soil temperature for your zip code. So if you look here, you can see all those areas that are in the yellow and orange and red there. You guys are in the window. You're actually ready to throw down like right now. Order your prodiamine, you're good to go. And then you can kind of see how it graduates up. And those of you up north, you're not quite there yet. So if you're somebody that wants to understand, well, Alan, when is about the time when I think I will have to throw mine down if you're not in the orange or red currently? What you can do is you can toggle back and you can look at historical dates. You can look at averages from the past and understand when your particular area typically historically hits 55 degrees. So now you know that 55 or approaching 55 in the soil is your trigger to get your pre-emergent down. You might be asking what those other milestones are. So let me explain that next. The reason those milestones are there is because the threat of crabgrass germination ends when soil temperatures are approaching 80. There's just a biological shutoff point there where it just gets too hot and they won't germinate anymore. Seeds can remain in the ground for years and years and years, and they're only eligible to germinate around those soil temps. Anything lower or anything higher, and it shuts them off and they continue to hibernate and sleep. So what we're looking to do is have pre-emergence coverage during that window of approaching 55 and approaching 80. I have the other soil temperature milestones on there so you can use a tool like the Greencast tool to understand how fast your soil temperature is rising, because with pre-emergence, I recommend what's called a split application, or really it's basically 2 applications in the spring to make sure that you're covered.
So we're doing 2 applications. Your first one goes down as soil temperatures approach 55 degrees in the soil. Then your second one is going to come somewhere around 45 days later as soil temperatures pass 65 and approach 70. That's the second application. And we call that a split application because if you wanted to, you could just do one heavy application as soil temperatures approach 55, and that's going to give you coverage all the way through, pretty much into the summer, and you're going to be safe. But I prefer to do what's called a split application. Instead of doing one heavy, I do one light early, and then that way I can come back with that second coat of paint about 45 days later and do that second coat, and I'm kind of just doubling up on things. That also helps if you apply and you get a lot of foot traffic or you get a lot of disturbance in the lawn or too much rain or whatever, you have that second application coming again like a second coat of paint just to kind of hedge your bets and keep things a little bit more even keeled as we head into the summertime.
Now, you guys are finding I always give you way more detail than you need. It's just how I like to teach. I like to tell people I'm like a high school teacher that teaches the same subject every year. I've been essentially teaching this subject now for 10 years here on YouTube. And I try to mix it up and make it a little bit different or talk about it in a different way, or at least maybe over a different microphone every year. That way I can kind of keep it fresh and exciting for me too, because I actually love this anyway. And so I love talking about it, and going through all this and doing all these studies actually makes me better in my strategies, because I have a couple of really cool project lawns coming up this year. One is zoysia and another is common Bermuda. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell down there so you don't miss. Even if you don't have one of those grass types, it's going to be fun to watch me work through it because it's in a public place and gets trampled every single weekend. Okay, I want to just give you a couple things to keep in mind here though, because sometimes people think that we are working in an exact science here, and we're not. Remember, your lawn is a living thing, and the soil is also a living thing, and there are all kinds of living things around it. And the one thing with living things is that they're variable. There are no constants with living things. The other thing to think about here, and I know we're talking about a lot of things and using the word thing a lot but I want you to consider that we are working here in a weather-driven business. Anything you do with lawn care is driven largely by the weather. The best planning, the best equipment, the best application, the most expensive chemical, the newest chemical, the coolest fertilizer with all the coolest stuff in it applied perfectly is not going to reach its full potential if the weather doesn't cooperate. So because of that, I don't want you to think that all of these things you're doing have to be perfect, or if you get some breakthrough, you see weeds come through, it's not your fault. It's not anything you did wrong. It just means that you got to realize that pre-emergents are not a one and done, set it and forget it strategy. They're a piece of an overall strategy. They're a piece of the defense while other parts of your strategy handle the offense. The other thing about it is, let's think about crabgrass seeds in the soils. If you haven't treated your lawn for many, many, many years, you might have thousands and thousands and thousands of seeds built up there. And those seeds don't all germinate the next year. Crabgrass seeds can stay in the soil dormant for 8-10 years even, and then all of a sudden you have a freak year, and all of those that have been hanging out there decide it's time to party here in 2020, and bam, they come up. And I don't know if this is going to be one of those years, but we certainly had a super late winter across much of the north. There was no snow, no ice cover, and 60-degree temperatures all the way up and through the middle of January even. And even down through the transition zone, we've seen all kinds of flowering trees starting to pop early, tulips coming up, all kinds of crazy things. So it may be a very tough year for crabgrass. And when we go into the specific videos by grass type, I'm actually going to give you some advanced pre-emergent strategies based on grass type because they're really, really different across that board. So make sure, again, that you go below after this video is over and check out all of the different videos and pick out your grass type and watch that one for some extra strategies. The other thing to think about crabgrass seeds is they're like people. Some people get up at 4:30 a.m. like Jocko Willink and put a picture of his watch on Twitter every morning, and other people have to sleep until 11, noon, or 1, even well into their 40s. Me, I'm an early riser. I'm a 5:30 a.m. guy, but I also go to bed minimum 2 hours after sunset. Everybody's different, and crabgrass seeds are the same way. Just because the window opens at 55 degrees, it doesn't mean every single crabgrass seed that's eligible to germinate in 2020 is going to. Some might wait until the soil temperature gets to 59 or 65 or 70, and that's why I said there's a window here. It's between 55 and 80. That's the open window of eligibility for those crabgrass seeds to wake up. If they stay past 80, then they've slept in and they're going to have to wait until the next year. There's other variables too to think about. For example, some crabgrass seeds might be 4 or 5 inches down, others might be right up on the soil surface, and so they'll be eligible to germinate at different times, as well as areas of the lawn that cool faster than others, or areas along sidewalks where it gets hotter faster. Those areas may have crabgrass germination sooner than areas that have partial shade by a tree half of the day. The reason I tell you this is because if you think you're late, you're not. Just because you don't get it down as soil temperatures approach 55, getting your pre-emergent down as soil temperatures approach 65 is better than not getting it down at all. Getting your first pre-emergent down as temperatures approach 70 is better than not getting it down at all. Getting your first pre-emergent down as temperatures approach 80 is better than not getting it down at all. Getting your pre-emergent down after 80 is a waste, so don't do it. But I hope you get the idea. If you stop 40% of the crabgrass, that's better than stopping 0% of it, right? So if you think you're a little bit late, you're not. Start where you are, make progress, and hope for the best. Another thing I want you to keep in mind is that pre-emergent herbicides do not stop every weed. In fact, they don't really stop that many weeds at all in the spring. Crabgrass, though, is the big one. Maybe some foxtail in there, I don't know, some other couple things, but the big one that we're going after, and this is for all grass types in all parts of the country, is crabgrass. Crabgrass will destroy a lawn. Now, especially a cool season lawn up north, crabgrass will seriously cause you damage because you don't have the aggressive rhizomes or stolons to repair quickly. Kentucky bluegrass, you do have some. Again, we'll talk about a lot of that in the more specific videos below. But for the most part, crabgrass will destroy a cool season lawn, and it'll wreak havoc in all the other grass types as well. So the lesson here is just because you apply pre-emergent herbicide, prodiamine, it's really going after crabgrass, and you're not even going to notice that difference until later in the summer because crabgrass never shows up until summer anyway. So put this one down, get it down right, and look to other strategies as you move forward because you are going to get some weeds, probably dandelions, clover, all kinds of other stuff. Stick here with the channel and we'll go through that as the year progresses for all grass types.